This grammar lesson for young learners uses the PPP method. It begins with a 5-minute warmer activity, where the teacher acts out some actions for the class and they have to guess what the teacher is doing. When learners call out the actions, the teacher writes them on the board, or virtual whiteboard, exactly as learners say them. At this point, the teacher is listening for uses of the present continuous grammar, but this is not necessarily expected. Learners are much more likely to call out using the present simple. The teacher should not guide the learners to the present continuous at this point, nor should they correct learners' language on the board. The aim of this warmer is to activate learner schemata on the grammatical topic, and have a bank of language to do with actions that can be used in the next stage of the lesson. These are predominantly teacher to students interactions at this stage, but if the class find the task easy, the teacher can choose different students to take turns miming actions to the rest of the class. The next stage of the lesson is the presentation, which lasts for about 10 minutes. The teacher uses the language they wrote on the board from the first stage of the lesson and tries to elicit the present continuous tense from the class. For example, they could do the following. If the learners wrote, "Watch TV," the teacher could ask the class what it is. Then, mime watching TV, then ask, "What am I doing?" Asking this question using the present continuous form will hopefully prompt the class to recognize the tense. If the class still say, "Watch TV," the teacher could say to the class, "But I'm doing it right now." What do we say if I watch TV right now at this moment? At this point, a learner will likely say, "You are watching TV," and the teacher can turn the sentence around to make it correct, and say, "Yes, that's right, I am watching TV." The teacher can repeat this process for a few example actions on the board, and hopefully, the more examples they do, the quicker and easier the students will recognize and use the present continuous tense. Once there are a few good examples on the board, the teacher elicits that the present continuous tense is used for actions that are happening now, at the time of speaking. Next, they elicit the form, which is subject plus to be plus the ing verb form. The teacher will write this on the board, drill examples as a class, and then do the same for the negative and question forms. Before moving on to the practice stage, the teacher checks the learner's understanding of the grammar by asking some concept-checking questions to the class. These are written in the lesson plan to prompt the teacher. This stage of the lesson is quite information-heavy, as this is where all the grammatical input is. The main aim is to simply show learners the grammar, explain how it's used, and how it's formed. Drilling helps learners to understand the pronunciation, and the concept-checking questions confirm that the learners have, for the most part, understood. The next stage is practice, which lasts for about 15 minutes. The teacher explains the task, then splits the class into pairs for offline lessons, or into breakout rooms if they are studying online. The learners have to do a task where they match up pictures to sentences with gaps in them, and when they have done that, they have to complete the gaps. All the sentences will be examples of present continuous grammar, and they will only have a word or two missing from each gap. This is because at the controlled practice stage of a class, it's important to give learners narrow limitations so that they can practice the grammar, but don't have so much freedom that they go off task. When learners have finished, they will come back to the main group and the teacher can pick people to give various answers to the class as a whole. The next core stage of the lesson is production, which lasts for about 25 minutes. This is the most important stage of the class in terms of the learners successfully acquiring the knowledge they've learnt so far. The teacher will once again split the class into pairs, or into breakout rooms, and give them the board game task. It's a good idea to make sure that learners are with a different partner than they were in the practice task. The main aim of this task is for learners to use the present continuous grammar when they play the game. There are pictures to prompt learners but no written language. During the task, learners could swap partners if necessary to have more opportunity to speak a greater amount of language. For offline classes, the teacher should walk around and listen to students as they speak. For online classes, the teacher should drop into the breakout rooms and listen to learner speaking. Once the task is nearly over, students must write down 5 example sentences using the present continuous. Lastly, the filler activity is there to offer an extra task for learners who finish early, or who find the task easy. Learners can mime actions, and a partner, or the rest of the class, can guess what action they are miming by using the present continuous grammar. This could even be extended further by adding in that the student is not doing something, or having learners ask questions using the present continuous. Overall, this is a nice grammar lesson that maximizes student-to-student interaction, and doesn't just revolve around learners answering grammar questions. There is an input section where learners just need to listen, but the vast majority of the lesson is dedicated to communication, practice, and free production.